Hey, what is up guys? GuitarRock here, welcome back to another Brown Dust 2 video. Alright, so here's the truth about what I'm gonna do, alright? I just finished a video. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't stream yesterday, and I've been working on this particular video about the potential liberation tier list. And I found out that the video is 3 hours long. And I'm like, if I upload this video that's 3 hours long, people are going to be bitching about why this video is so long, GuitarRock, why is it so long? Because I can only watch for 10 minutes. Why you make a video for 3 hours long? So I figured, scratch that, I'm not going to upload it. So that's going to be a different topic together. And I know a lot of you guys have been asking me to make a video talking about potential liberation and which characters that you should be prioritizing on. And I think that in that video I explained a little bit too much explanation, alright? People don't want to hear the explanation, people just want to see the stuff. And I get it. So hopefully, let's make a shorter video and hopefully, we get straight to the point as much as I can. But it's really hard because like when you try to explain certain things, some things are just, you're gonna need to a much more detailed explanation because you're comparing characters, right? So I'm gonna try my best. Let's talk about potential liberation. If you guys are not aware what the heck is a potential liberation, every character right now in the game has the ability to go through the potential liberation. If you look at this upgrade button right here, go here, and then now you can potentially liberate your characters by getting more perks. Now you're going to need a couple of things when you potentially liberate your characters. Hopefully you guys are aware by now. Number one, you're going to need these things. These are the stones, right? The fire magic crystal that you can farm every single day. You can basically go to the this particular one under the crystal, the magic crystal cave. You can see there's fire, water, wind, light, darkness. So these potential liberation are going to unlock special abilities of your characters, right? So you have to upgrade along this path, and then there's 3 main paths for at least for 5-star characters that you can reach that's going to unlock their potential even more. For example, this one is going to give you 20% more attack. This one is going to give you plus 2 turns of buffs. This one is going to give you plus 1 turn of evade. So usually, a lot of the time, depending on what you need, is going to be dependent on the characters, right? So let's give you guys a brief idea of what to look out for when you're trying to potentially liberate your characters before we jump into my top picks for the potential liberation. Now keep in mind, this is going to be my personal opinion, my top picks. I would love to give you guys a very, very detailed explanation, but I'm trying to like shorten the video as much as I can. So the truth is, let's just give a brief summary, alright? This is going to be somewhat universal. This is what you want to prioritize, alright? In my humble opinion, number 1 is going to be the range, number 2 is going to be the SP reduction, number 3 is going to be the damage increase, and number 4, the least priority is going to be the cooldown time. Now, what is this all about? Let's talk about range. Range is the priority, alright? If you see a potential liberation is able to increase the range, you know that one is going to give you a lot of potential. For example, this one. So look at this, alright? So this is a Leatrice, made Leatrice to be exact costume. You can see by default this is going to be the range, right? It's like a cross tile that hits in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tile range. The moment you potentially liberate her to maximum, you can see the range changes into this particular 3x3 square tile. Now 3x3 square tile is super rare. Not many characters has the ability to hit this many tile range. So she's definitely one of my top pick, my top recommended of a character that you want to potentially liberate first if you can afford to. In fact, I would say she's definitely top 3 in the game for me to prioritize in potentially liberating. Now, of course, that also lies on a couple of things, right? Ideally, any character that gives improved range is going to be always on top of, the category, like prioritize. So same goes for Rafitia. You can see this one. If you potentially liberate her, the range of this cross tile becomes a 3x3. Again, this is going to be much easier to position because you are buffing the characters surrounding this 3x3 tile. So if you are only having this kind of range, that means you have to position the characters right next to her, left, right, up, down. So you cannot put like diagonally, right? In this case, you can, and this is going to make it so much easier for you to be able to buff your characters. And any character that you see that improves their range in battle, ideally is going to be the top priority in most cases. There are some like, let me see if I can find, I need to be able to I believe Cry has one as well, where this one, this other one, right? So you can see this particular one, this one is just 2 tile, and then when you upgrade, it becomes like 3 tile. So it's going to be much more easier. You can position him all the way at the left or all the way at the right. So range should be your top priority if you're looking out to potentially liberate a character. Alright, so the next one is going to be SP reduction. Now this one, very, very important. I'm sure you guys are aware by now. SP reduction are potential liberation that reduces your SP. Alright, so when you go to battle, this SP right here, 5 SP, for example, to use her skill is really, really high. So when you potentially liberate her, it becomes 4 SP. Now in most cases, potential liberation for SP reduction is going to be almost as important as range. Alright, but I would say range is still the priority in most cases. There are some exceptions. Alright, SP reduction usually is going to come second. Now, it does change how you use the characters. Like, a lot of it are going to be super broken. Like, for example, Helena. Alright, so if you have her at +5, right? This particular one you can see, if you have her at +5, you can see 2 SP becomes 1 SP. 1 SP is going to be like insane. You're going to be able to pair her, combo her with way more characters. She's going to be much more usable in PvP. She's going to be way more broken, right? So there's a lot of factors that goes into this. So I do think that the range and SP reduction, in most cases, range top priority to look out for, SP reduction second. There are a few exceptions. For example, like Diana, I would say is pretty decent, I would say, exception where the range is not super useful. It is still good, right, to get this kind of range. So what she does is, you can see this is going to be the tile range. You get 2 tile above, 2 tile left, 2 tile right, 2 tile below. Now if you potentially liberate her, now you get 3 tiles above, left, right, and below. So this is still pretty good. You use Diana all the time, and I still think that this is still going to be kind of a decent one, but compared to like Leatrice's one, which I showed you guys earlier, where her range becomes a 3x3 tile, that's going to be like a superior upgrade compared to this particular one. So obviously, all of these have to be taken with a grain of salt, but ideally, this is going to be the universal priority that I will look out for. Prioritize the range first. Oh shoot, what happened to the notepad? Prioritize the range first, SP reduction later, damage increase later, and cooldown time is the least priority. Now, why cooldown time is the least priority is because a lot of characters, while it is interesting that you get the ability to reduce the cooldown time, let me see if I can find some example, right? For example, okay, this one is a good one. So you can see 9 turns becomes 5 turns. So cooldown time is how often you can use that particular costume to be able to unleash to be able to use it, right? So because once you use it, it will enter the cooldown time. It is going to be important, but compared to range and SP reduction, these two will always take priority because SP reduction basically makes it so that you have a higher chance of being able to use that skill to begin with. Certain skills are like 6 SP. If you reduce it to 4 SP, you're going to be able to use that skill more often. Now, having high cooldown time is not going to matter as much for most characters because most top tier characters have multiple costumes anyways. So you can always, while this is on cooldown, you can use this other skill. So it's not that big of a deal. So there are some exceptions out there, but in most cases, a lot of characters that are somewhat meta, they do have multiple, multiple different costumes. For example, Angelica, right? You can see this is this one is not going to be the priority as much. As you can see, 7 turn, this one will be able to push it to still 7 turn, but you can see this cooldown goes down to 3. This one is very, very useful actually. If you can get this particular one to 3 SP, I would say Angelica, all her costume is so good. But yeah, hopefully this is going to give you guys a general idea of what to look out for when you're prioritizing in terms of the how do you prioritize in upgrading the potential liberation for a character, right? So the range is always going to be the priority. Anything that improves range, ideally, like there are a few exceptions I understand, but universally range is going to be the priority, followed by SP reduction, damage increase. It's cool, but ideally these two is still going to be much more important, and then a cooldown time is the least priority in most cases. So with that being said, let's talk about the top characters that you want to ideally potential liberate in the game. So this is going to be my top pick. Now, keep in mind, here's the thing, right? Whether or not you want to follow this is going to be dependent on the characters that you have and how high of a plus of the characters that you have. So for example, some characters might be more worth it for you. Let's say you have this particular costume, Rafina's costume, right? You get this costume at +5. This is going to be really worth it for you to potentially liberate. If a character's costume is only +0 and you potentially liberate that costume, the benefit that you get is going to be less compared to a character that have +5. So everyone's character or costume plus is going to be different. So it's hard for me to give you, oh, this is going to be better universally, because there's no such thing as universally. Like my character investment is going to be different than yours. So you might have this costume at +5, mine is +0. So I might have this at +2. This is going to be much more worth it for me because I will get way more out of this, right? So you can see this one is going to be able to reduce this to +3, right? But if you have this particular one at +5, right, you can see this is going to be a better one for you as well. So that's something that you have to always take into consideration when I talk about which one to prioritize first. But ideally, assuming that you have everything at +5, this is assuming you have everything max, which is not in the ideal world scenario. The top priority for me is going to be, for damage dealer, Angelica. Alright, by far, there's no doubt about it. Angelica is going to be the most universal character in the game. Alright, if you're tackling any Fiend boss, you're tackling any boss, any PvE, PvP content, she can be used almost everywhere. Which is insane, because if you think about it, all her costumes are really good. Alright, now, which one should you prioritize first? Now, that's going to depend on you. Which one you have at a higher plus. In my humble opinion, this is something that a lot of people like to talk about, is the damage that she can do. Now, this one is very strong. If you start on with, in the battle with this particular costume first, the Yorman Reverse Mood, the Neon Savior Angelica, this one can actually do decent damage. You can see her DOT damage goes up really high, from 25% DOT up to 37%. That is like an insane increase, and from 5 SP becomes 3 SP. Now, because this one, the cooldown time is so freaking high, you ideally want to start off with this particular costume first. Like the setup is going to be this particular Angelica costume first, and then you use one of the other two. Alright, now this particular one, you can see 2 SP. Alright, this one does damage 60%, right? Goes up to 70%. And then the cooldown time does go up to 3. Doesn't reduce the SP though, sadly, but ideally, this is going to be pretty decent because it makes it much more cyclable. You can use this more often because the SP is so little. And then we have this particular, which is the this one is going to be the Swimsuit Angelica. Now, this one is also going to be pretty insane, 25%. It doesn't really increase range whatsoever, but you can see, you know, just the damage increase overall. Now, I do get a lot of people saying that, oh, I like this particular Swimsuit Angelica more often because it gives more damage, alright? And compared to the default, the Fallen Angelica, the Non-Angelica, and I get it, right? Ideally, this one is going to do more damage if you only look at damage. But if you look at damage per cost ratio, you will understand that this is a 4 SP costume, whereas this is a 2 SP costume. So if you look at cost to SP ratio or whatever, right? This one is actually pretty good. They are about equal, I would say, right? Because of the amount of SP this one consumes versus this other one which consume like double the SP. Now, something to consider. So I do think that Angelica is a very universal character. If you guys are not aware why she's so strong, is because against bosses, she just needs crit damage, alright? Because she scales off the target's max HP. All of her skills are the same. You can see, target's max HP, and then scales off target's max HP. She doesn't need any attack, or even though she's a magic base, she doesn't need like magic attack. She only needs crit damage. Build her with a ton of crit damage. Let me give you guys an example. This is my Angelica. You can see I have about 663% crit damage right now. You know, with Refitia's buff, it's about 700% plus. But ideally, this is how you want to, you know, build your Angelica ideally. So hopefully, you guys have been building Angelica with crit damage, not attack, not magic attack percent, or else you'll be building her wrong. Now, next up, let's talk about the other one. Like I mentioned, Maid Latrice is going to be very strong. Highly vouch for her. Alright, so she has this particular costume. Alright, so you can see this one is pretty insane. Alright, so 4 SP, 5 turns, but if you upgrade this, it becomes 3 SP and this range. So 3 SP for a 3x3 tile range is insane. It's superior. You use her in story, you're not going to use any other character, trust me. So once if there's any boss that's weak against fire or during a fire buff week, she is going to be a go-to character ideally. So the Leatrice maid costume is insane. Now let's talk about the other one. So this is going to be the Neon, what do you want to call this? The Neon Stalker Leatrice, right? So this particular one is not too bad, much more for PvP because of how this range goes. But you can see it's much more just damage increase ideally. And then last but not least is going to be the default one. The default Leatrice, which everybody has. The problem with this costume, while it does also equally more damage sometimes, is the cost. Alright, this one is going to be quite expensive. You can see 6 SP. So ideally, if you can reduce this, if you go up to +3, it becomes 5 SP, and if you potentially liberate her, it becomes 4 SP. Way more usable. And plus the DOT that she provides with this range, she is going to be one of the more insane character to actually build for fire type. Now, you know, I do think that she's going to be my top character for damage dealer, ideally, to carry you in any campaign alongside with Angelica. I like to use them both together. The good thing is you can run her in the physical team with Arenes, and Angelica can just be there. Angelica, remember that she doesn't need magic attack buff. She just needs a crit rate from Arenes, and that's just such a good combination, ideally. So this is going to be my top in terms of trying to potentially liberate as well. It does open up a bunch of potential. Now let's talk about the next one, which is going to be Helena. Now this is where it gets super interesting. Helena. Okay. So this particular one, it opens so much potential from 2 SP become 1 SP. Now this is only, again, this is only if you have her at +5. If your Helena is +1, no, it's not going to be worth it. But at +5, it's insane because you get 50% crit rate, you get 100% magic attack for 1 SP. In PvP, this opens up so much potential. Now you have plenty of combination of buffs because crit rate 50%, while this is going to be much less useful in scenarios like Fiend bosses, Fiend Hunter bosses where you're almost guaranteed crit, this one is going to be much more relevant in story, in the tower, in like PvP. For 1 SP, you're getting so much. This is like insane, alright? It's a crazy, insanely crazy valuable stuff, and I do vouch for this particular one ideally in total. Yeah, it's just so good, man. For this particular 1 SP, it gives you so much, like you get so much different combinations that you can try. Let me know if you guys want me to make a PvP video of like PvP opening. You can do so much things with her. I do think that you can pair her with like the swimsuit Angelica, you can pair her with like a lot of other characters, right, to try to like deal with a lot of other ones. So ideally this is going to be the one that I recommend. This one I don't recommend as much. This one you can see, if you're looking at this particular one, it does increase the damage reduction, reduce the cost. You do get more SP though. This is like a battery unit, but ideally I would recommend the other one first. That's going to be the priority. Now another character that I want to talk a lot about is going to be, okay, let's just first talk about some characters that I don't recommend as much, and people are always like telling me why do I recommend these characters. Number one is Ventana, right? Now why don't I recommend Ventana as much compared to something like Angelica? Because Angelica exists. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Ventana is not bad. She's just going to be more niche. Now I do have her, you can see, at +0. Now if you have her at +5 already, I think she's going to be one of the best characters to tackle any bosses. Actually not any bosses, but going to be tackle bosses that are weak against light elemental. So she's going to be good right there. The truth is, you can see her damage is really high, but Angelica is going to be much more flexible because Ventana is going to be good, but you're not going to use her in the other bosses. Angelica is going to be better in that case. So in most cases, like cost efficiency wise, if you're like a new or mid-rank player, like somewhat semi-veteran, investing in Angelica is going to make more sense compared to investing in Ventana. Unless you love her design so much, then sure. But if for most cases, Angelica, you will be able to use her consistently in all the Fiend Hunter bosses compared to Ventana. Ventana is only going to be, she shines specifically in bosses that are weak against light type. For example, the current season where the blue beard or whatever, right? So something to keep in mind, if Angelica didn't exist, I wouldn't have, you know, Ventana might shine more, but because Angelica exists, you know, you want to invest in something that you can use everywhere compared to something that's way more specialized. There are some exceptions. For example, like I mentioned, Leatrice is an exception because she is so good. Her tower range is insane 3x3 tile is just rare. Alright, so you don't get, like, those are the exceptions. And what other exceptions is there? Dalvi. Dalvi is also another exception, I would say, that I would recommend pouring the investment despite her not having a lot of costume. Alright, I would say potential liberation for her is going to be pretty good. So let's look at what she does. Assuming you have her at +5, you can see 4 SP 9 turn is going to become 3 SP, and then you get the damage increase from 300%. I mean, not 300, not damage increase, but 30% increase is decent. Alright, so the range is like whatever, but because Dalvi is a character that doesn't rely on multiple costumes, she can basically hit multiple turns, multiple times, right? So she's gonna shine in like PvP, for example, and this energy guard, if you have her at +5, does give you a little bit of survivability as well to be able to take hits. So it makes her a really strong character overall. Now again, this is only at +5, which is why I never really push my Dalvi as much, because mine is still at +1. I do get the SP reduction here, but you know, I don't really get the bonuses as much. So she is going to be a much more expensive character to invest on, ideally. But if you have her, you know, I think she's going to be one of the better ones, ideally. So for wind type especially, she is going to be very good. Now let's talk about Lethal. I think this is something that we need to talk about. Why don't I recommend Lethal as much? Why don't I prioritize potential liberation for Lethal compared to other characters? So there's a couple of reasons why. Number one, this particular costume that a lot of people have been telling me that is very good. It's good if you are a veteran player. It's not good if you're a new player. Now let me explain why. This one, you can see 5 at +5 you get 1 SP, 80% increase attack, 50% increase attack. So if you potentially liberate this, it becomes 90%, alright, and 70%. Now this is a very high attack percent buff. It's really good. But there are a couple of conditions here. Number one, you need to have this at +5, right? Which is where, if you are new, I don't really recommend it as much. So there's a little bit of investment. Airiness exists and everyone has airiness. So what's the purpose of using this Lethal when airiness exists, right? So if your argument is like, okay, how about Fiend Hunter, where you don't really need airiness as much, but again, still like airiness can be used elsewhere, where you are going to need that crit rate in story, right? In PvP, for example, and also in like any other situation, airiness makes a lot more sense for most players. You know, quote unquote most players. Like I'm talking about a beginners to intermediate players. Like if you're already like a veteran player, yeah, if you invest in this, you can go for that for sure. And one more is going to be this particular one, Path of Vengeance, Lethal. This one is good. Only good in the last night boss. You're not going to use this particular costume in story. You're not going to use this particular costume in Fiend Hunter bosses most cases. And plus she is Lethal is fire. Lethal is fire is really tight space, right? Lethal and Alec doesn't shine as much because Leatrice and Diana exist. I will argue that Anastasia might even compete with him as well in those cases. So because Leatrice exists, there's just not much what's the word here? Motivation or encouragement for you to invest in Lethal as much. Unless you happen to have him at +5, that's good. But he's not as universal as most other characters because of his limited tile range. That's going to be pretty much it. And Wiggle exists as well. I forgot about this guy, right? If you are new, probably you're going to be utilizing Wiggle most of the time in most cases. Now let's talk about the next priority. Zenith. Okay, Zenith is also very useful. I think she's going to be much more universal than a lot of players give her credit for. She makes a lot of other characters that reduces debuff the enemies obsolete. So the reason why is because, assuming again, if you have her at +5, this is what you're gonna have, right? So at +5, you attack 6 times, and then you apply this thing called the incoming damage increase by 50%. Now, this is going to go to 0 SP from 1 SP, and then this 50% is going to go to 100%, which is a lot. Alright, if you have Zenith, it makes a lot of other characters obsolete because of how easy it is for you to just stack incoming damage increase at 0 cost. Alright, so before Zenith, I believe I saw this character, what's her name? Eclipse, right? And this girl, she's really strong, right? You can see right here, she does damage, alright? And she decreases defense and magic resist by 50%. Alright, if you potentially liberate her all the way, 3 SP, 50% of decrease in defense and magic resist is really, really cool, but it still costs 3 SP. Whereas Zenith costs 0 SP, and she can apply 100% incoming damage taken, and that's just for 0 cost. That's like way more invaluable. So if there's only one character that you can invest in, I would recommend Zenith, but again, it does make more sense if you have her at high cost or high plus. So if you are at, for example, if you are at +0 like mine, then she's gonna be 1 SP. Yeah, if she's going to be 1 SP as opposed to 0 SP. So which might not seem that big of a deal, but still, I think she should be a priority for any player if you have her at +5, alright, to potentially liberate first, definitely. So very, very easy increase in power spike right there to be able to help you to tackle any of the Fiend bosses. Very, very good. So one more character that I think a lot of players have, and I don't really talk about this as much, it's going to be Samai. She's going to be like the budget Zenith in a way. I still haven't built her yet, but if you do have her built, which I think is going to be much more easier because a lot of players have her at +5. So this particular one, especially this one, because it's so easy to have this at +5, you literally, if you potentially liberate her, she's going to be 0 SP. For 0 SP, you're going to increase your attack and magic attack by 50%. That is insane value. Alright, this other costume, on the other hand, is going to be 3 costs for you to do like this amount of damage. Pretty decent overall, but for new players, I think a lot of new players, this is going to be very, very good benefit overall for 0 SP to be able to buff your characters and help you perform in the Fiend Hunter, Fiend bosses. So consider her as well. Samai is going to be one of the few ones. And of course, let's not forget, right, if you're talking about Fiend Hunter, the priority for a lot of players, a character they're going to always use, you almost will never take it off your team if you're tackling the Fiend Hunter boss, is going to be Diana. Alright? Ideally, invest in her. She makes a lot of sense. Although her tile range, whether or not this is going to be useful is going to depend on the boss. Sometimes the boss is going to attack you at higher level. This is going to make more sense because the boss does more damage, and therefore you want to be able to position your characters to avoid those damage instances. But in most cases, you know, increasing her property damage even further, right? 20% increase, reducing the cooldown time so that she can basically reduce all the way to cooldown and buff again is very, very useful. I do think that, you know, it makes a lot of sense. This particular costume, right? The other one, I don't think it's going to be as much needed. But the Adventure of the Unknown Diana, highly, highly recommend. Now, Rafitia. Alright, so the latest addition to the character, to the roster. How strong is she? I do think that this particular, not this particular one, the other one, this one. So this one is a very, very good costume, which is why I pulled for multiple copies. You can see at +5, you will be able to increase your crit damage by a lot. Alright, cooldown time reduced as well. That's going to be quite beneficial. So the increase in crit damage 25% is going to be more important than you think, because especially against Fiend Hunter bosses, crit is going to be a guarantee. Alright, there's no like, oh, there's a chance to crit. No, it's guarantee. So you know that's always going to be there. So the 125% is way more impactful than you think. Alright, even though it seems like a very small detrimental amount, but I do think that it's as balanced as it gets, right? They should want to make this too strong. Now, is this like a priority? I still feel like this shouldn't be the top, but I think it's worth mentioning. I think Diana one is going to be more important. But crit damage, pretty much universal with how it is. For now, Rafitia is the only character in the game that can buff crit damage. So highly, highly recommend this particular one. Alright, so hopefully you guys are aware of that. Now let's talk about another one that I can think of is going to be Ro. Now sadly, this one is going to depend on you if you have this costume or not, because the limited costume right here, this particular one. Alright, the Stray Cat Rule, I think this one is very, very strong. So this one will be able to give you the the SP reduction to 4 SP, makes it way more usable, right? 4 SP is definitely way more usable. The attack buff is like whatever, right? 430%, but trust me, that SP reduction is key. Alright, if you are looking to tackle Alright, you also increase the crit rate, by the way, do not forget. If you are able to tackle any enemies that are weak against dark type, I think the next boss is going to be weak against dark type, consider this particular costume. The problem is not everybody has this costume. This is a limited costume available during the last year's first anniversary. I mean, not first, 0.5 year anniversary, right? Somewhere in December. So, you know, if you have this costume, you have this at +5. You either have this at +5 or you don't have this costume. You don't really have this at +1 because it's... Okay, maybe you do. Maybe if you slack a little bit during the event, you don't really play seriously, you might have missed it. But in most cases, you either have this at +5 or you don't have this at +5. So if you don't care about the game, yeah, you have this at +2, +3 because you were slacking during the event. But most players do get this particular costume at +5 during that event. Definitely, it's one of the better costumes out there, actually. This is really, really good. For 4 SP, that range is as good as it gets, alright? Against Fiend Hunter bosses, that's what you ideally want. That's what you ideally want to obtain. So, I pretty much list down my top priorities of characters or costumes that you want to prioritize for the time being. Obviously, you also want to look at the bonuses that we have every single season and the Fiend Hunter bosses and upgrade according to that, because that's going to make a lot of sense. So right now, it's the light season, right? We are still in the light season because the boss, the current season of the boss, this one is going away again very, very soon. Always look at the boss. This one is going to weak against light type because the boss is a dark type right here, right? So how you want to upgrade your characters is going to depend on the current Fiend Hunter bosses. Always prioritize that and upgrade from there accordingly. So yeah, I'm going to recap in case you guys, you know, somewhat miss it. Angelica, Leatrice, Helena, Zenith, Ro for that particular costume, the Stray Cat one, Raphithia, Diana, Samay. Those are my top picks. And of course, I would say for water type, Shirazad is pretty good, right? I think she is going to be one of the better characters. Like I mentioned in the earlier part of the video, it also depends on which character you have at +5. Alright, if your character is at +0 and +1, the priority to upgrade to potentially liberate those are going to be lesser than compared to your costumes that are +5. So ideally focus on those costumes that you have +5 first. Alright, so with that being said, I'm going to do some pulls. I did claim this particular one right here. So I did purchase the package 2. People have been asking me which package do I buy in Brown Dust 2. For me, this one makes the most sense. The monthly diamond package 2. You can buy both monthly diamond package 1 and 2 if you want to, but for me, I'm only buying the monthly diamond package 2. And therefore, I can do some additional pulls on the current banner before it goes away. So I am saving for the collab for the time being. So no idea what is going to be. But hey, Brown Dust 2, man. Brown Dust 2 has been fun. Brown Dust 2 has been awesome. Love this game. And hopefully the collab can, you know, bring in more players if anyone's interested. Then I'm getting 2 UR. Okay. So you can see this is my current one. 1 day left. I will be using my paid diamonds. This is like a paid diamond specific thing to obtain one of these 3 costumes. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention about Yuri as well. Yuri is strong, but she's not, her potential liberation is not that good. I think it only give like damage increase. It doesn't give like range increase or SP reduction. So that's that. That's why I didn't put her in the list. Okay, let's go. Let's see who do I get. It'll be nice if this is Angelica swimsuit, so I can get her to +5. So it's usually at the end. Usually, unless you... Is there a chance to get more than 1? I think there could be a chance, but the chance is going to be super low, as far as I know. Okay, it's going to be here. Let's see. Who shall this be? Who shall this be? Angelica. Okay, let's go. So after this, I'll be able to buy 1 more, and then I got this particular costume at +5. One of the strongest costume in the game. Alright, that's it. That's going to be it for this video. Again, I don't know how this video ended up being like 30 minutes long. I tried my best to make it as fast as I can. You know, but the other video is actually 3 hours long. I'm not going to upload that. That's a bit too long, right? But again, let me know if you guys have any questions. Feel free to ask in the comment section below. As always, subscribe, give this video a like. See you guys in the next one. Have a nice day. Goodbye.